Welcome. In this tutorial, you will learn steps to quickly design an online course. When you design a course for online, you will want to write down the outcomes you want students to show you at the end of each week. Your outcomes can follow the CABD method. Provide a condition, an audience, a behavior, and a degree of accuracy. In this example, the outcome for your students will be: given information about climate data in Minnesota, students will share 3 predictions about Minnesota climate change in the year 2040. The condition is information about climate data in Minnesota. The audience is students. The behavior is predicting. The degree is 3 predictions. If students provide the 3 predictions, then you know that they met the outcome you wanted from them. Generally, you will want to have between 3 to 5 outcomes per week. Once you have your outcomes for the week, write down the means by which you will assess that your students have met the outcomes. Using the example outcome, which assessment tool would work best for you? In this instance, I may want all my students to see each other's predictions, so I would create a discussion in Brightspace D2L for students to share their predictions. If I didn't want them sharing with others, but just sharing with me, I would create a Dropbox assignment for students to share their document with their predictions. With this outcome, I would not use a quiz. For each week, you should review each of your outcomes and determine the means of assessment that you will use so that students can prove they met the outcomes you want them to meet. Once you have the outcomes written and you have decided on the means of assessment, you should determine the content you want your students to look at that will help them meet the outcomes that you have written. Looking at the sample outcome, what content might best be used to teach them what they need to know? Perhaps you have material in a textbook or an article. Perhaps you have a short lecture. A note about lectures. Lectures should be short, no more than 10 minutes. This means you stick to 1 or 2 topics. An hour lecture is something your students will struggle with. In our sample outcome, I might have material in a textbook. I might have a web page from the state of Minnesota, and I might have a video about climate change for students to watch. You can have more than one source of content for a learning outcome, but make sure the content will address the outcome that you have written. To organize your process, I suggest creating a spreadsheet with 4 columns. A column for week, for your learning outcomes, for your means of assessment, and for your content needed. Write down your measurable outcomes, the means by which you will assess the outcome, and the content you plan to use so the students can show they met your outcome. Now that you have the basics for designing your course, you can add your content and assessments into the learning management system your school has provided. You have learned to write learning outcomes, to determine a means of assessment, and to find content. These are the essential ingredients to designing a functional online course.